don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you'll miss it. For success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue, and it only does so as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or the byproduct of one's surrender to a person other than oneself. Happiness must happen, and the same holds for success. You have to let it happen by not caring about it. Listen to what your conscience commands you to do, and go on and carry it out to the best of your knowledge. And you will live to see that in the long run, success will follow you precisely because you've forgotten to think about it.
Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus, resilient, highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Better Humanology Podcast. My name is Jared Moon, and with me, as always, is Talon Schwab. What's up, Talon?
Hey, Jared, how's it going?
Good, man. Good. Always excited to be doing the podcast, as I normally say, but excited to be making people better, and that's why we're here.
It's my goal in life.
All right, so let's talk challenges. Do you have a challenge? Should I ask?
I do.
Who should go first, me or you?
Mine's
let's
not
take
really
a listener poll and see who should normally go first.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you have a little bit more of a shotgun.
I try to throw as much at people until they do something. All right, so you want to go first or me?
I can go first. Maybe mine will set the tone for the entire fluffy, nice, flowery episode. It's gonna be.
Oh, well, we'll see if it's that.
No, it's gonna be very tactful and everything. Anyway, so
not conceptual at all.
No, not at all. So my challenge this week is a little out there. So I want you guys to go on the internet, or if you have magazines laying around, which is not very likely anymore. I don't know anybody that really has magazines laying around. But so go on the internet, find 5 or 6 images, pictures, or whatever from your future. 5 or 6 pictures that are descriptions or good things that indicate, what your future is going to be like. If it's a, retirement or dream home, vacation location or something like that, or if it's a place of peace or success or something that shows something that you desire or desire to be like, try and pick out 5 or 6 pictures, cut them out if you have to. You can kind of splice it. You don't have to just, pick out the pictures and then tape them to your wall or something like that. Try and cut them out and put them together, tape them together, and then, put them somewhere where you'll see them, like your bathroom window, mirror or something like that, or your window, or, your wall somewhere, maybe inside your closet or something like that. Someplace you'll see it that you don't have to show everybody else, but someplace you'll see that you can have a daily reminder and then, build off of it over time. So it's one of these things that I think we'll talk about a little bit later in the podcast about how this kind of thing could affect you in the long run. But just in the short term, just doing this process, I think will kind of give you so much more kind of hopefulness, like looking forward, just a better outlook on what your future is going to be like. Because it's fun kind of look ahead in that way, in that positive light, and how you see, the things you accomplish materializing.
Kind of like a law of attraction vision board thing going on.
Yes,
I like
exactly.
it. What's funny is that's exactly what I did to the background of my computer. So
all right.
It's a combination of different images of things that I want to achieve, and that just stares me in the face every day that I'm on my computer. So
see, that's even better. After you finish, you take a picture of it and you put it as your background on your picture, so you wake up and your dashboard's right there.
I actually use Photoshop to put all the images together. But
well, look at you!
Look at me! Oh my goodness, so crazy. All right, no, but I do absolutely. I love that challenge, and I think everyone should go do it for a lot of reasons, which we'll probably talk about today. All right, so getting to my challenges, mental toughness challenge. So we've talked about this a few times, but I've never actually challenged people to do it, but I think it would be a mental toughness challenge. So take out your phone right now if you're listening to us on your phone. Specifically, the iPhone is the only one I'm familiar with. And go ahead and turn Talon and I on 1.5 speed or 2x speed if you haven't done this already. We talk about, I listen to audiobooks and 2 times speed, sometimes 3x speed if I'm sitting there and just concentrating on the words. Now I figured out a few months ago that the internet, every video you watch, like on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever, has the ability, if you go to the little settings icon, you can watch it in 1.5x or 2x speed. It's changing my world. Since I've been doing it with audiobooks, it's amazing because, like, quick example of listening to something in 2x, the book I'm going to recommend today, it's a shorter book, like I think around the 4-hour mark or something like that. And
Wow.
I went to go get dinner for Emily and I got stuck in traffic on the way out there and the way back. Super frustrating.
So
But
you finished the whole book.
it was much less frustrating because I had my headphones, I had my my phone, and I listened to it in 2x speed, and I finished I think like 90% of the book, and then finished the rest of it later. So it really can change it. And the reason it's a mental toughness challenge is because when you first start, it's like, I don't think I can actually do this. This is crazy. But now I'm to the point, I've been doing it for so long, when I listen to someone in 1x speed on a podcast, I'm like, why are you talking so slowly? And so you can knock out our podcast. I mean, ours are never like maybe an hour long, 40 minutes to 60 minutes. You can knock us out in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and move on and go do something else that makes you better. So that's my mental toughness challenge. Why are you saying wow?
It's impressive to me. Rachel's been doing it lately, listening to books on I think 1.5x.
It takes a little bit of practice. It's crazy at first, but really, like, your comprehension, like, you just get used to. I mean, humans can adapt to anything, right? Just about. Right. So, yeah, it's a challenge.
See, I'm one of those people, though, that for me, I know it's listening to books. I'm one of those people that have to go back and, like, read over sentence a couple times over to, like, really, like, fully, like, understand it, because I need to, like, pay full attention to it. I'll like, when I'm actually reading, I'll get lost sometimes and just, like, thinking about what a sentence said, and what my brain will just, branch off into all the different places it could go because of what that sentence said, So sometimes I feel like I have to go back, and so I wonder what 2x speed would do to me.
That's why you have sometimes that happens, and there's the backwards 30 seconds button on
really?
On Audible.
I've seen that button. Now I know what it's for.
Yeah,
okay.
So if you're like, wait a minute, I want to hear that again. And I do that often. And then there's also the clip feature, so you can clip it and, like, go back to that if you want to later or something.
Okay.
So that's my mental toughness challenge. Try it out. I really think that you should try it out right now. It's funny if you just pulled out your phone and did that. We're talking a lot faster right now, and it probably sounds really crazy, and even crazier right now because I've started talking faster. But I just had to do that just in case.
That was a really good impression.
Anyone did it, but let's go ahead and move on. All right, the physical fitness challenge for this week. I want everyone to go out and test and film their standing broad jump. And I want you to film it on your phone. I want you to post it to Instagram, and I want you to tag me in it on Instagram. I'm at EO3Fit, or you can find at Garage Gym Athlete on Instagram, because I want to see your standing broad jumps, whether it's 3 inches or 13 feet, whatever you got. I want to see it, and I'll post mine as well, maybe sometime later this week. So that's my physical fitness challenge. See how far you can jump. See if you're happy with it. All right, new habit formation. So January, we're working on sleep, and I wanted everyone to get their sleep corrected before in February I start telling them to wake up early. So that was the start of our new habit formation last week. And I gave a simple lay out your clothes, get ready for it. And now we've talked about this on the show before, but I'm going to give official recommendation because I've run into more than a few people who have the spouse or infant or whatever waking them up when you get up early. So I'll post it. I'll post a link to it in the show notes, but specifically, I have a G-Shock vibrating alarm watch, and I highly recommend that for waking up early without waking anyone else up. And so vibrating alarm would be my recommendation for waking up early.
So these are people saying that since they need to wake up early, that they're sleeping like a one kind of all one bedroom kind of thing, or what's the deal here?
No, like sleeping in the same bed with your spouse, like if your alarm goes off, you're going to wake them up. Or if you have a really loud alarm and your baby sleeps in the next room really close or something, they can hear it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So
co-sleeping is no-go.
Co-sleeping is a no-go. With a vibrating alarm, pretty much anything is a go-go. So
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
That sounded good. It's like we planned that. All right, now the last thing for challenges, book recommendation is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And phenomenal book. I can't recommend this one enough. Viktor Frankl was in concentration camps in World War II, Auschwitz, and many others, smaller camps. And the book is a short book. This is actually the one I listened to and almost finished while in traffic. But man, I was like captivated. Like I didn't even care that I was in traffic because this book was so good. And the first half of the book is all about his time in POW camps, or these concentration camps, should I say, not POW camps, and held by the Nazis. And he talked not only about his experiences, but a lot of the mental aspect of people being there. Like he could tell, like people would live, and then once they gave up mentally, it was normally, he said, like a 24 to 48 hour window before they were dead. He said, but they would normally die of some reason that like you would die, like getting typhus or something weird, like it was like a legitimate cause, but they didn't get it until you saw that person give up. It's all about your mentality, your belief of it. And the whole book is about the introduction to logotherapy, which is, and we'll talk more about this in this episode, but, there's the, Freud's view that we're all after pleasure, right? And
Sure.
then his is, he thinks that mankind really, like, we're just, our greatest psychological power is, or should I say, what urges us on most is our search for meaning. But he kind of compounds on those. He doesn't necessarily negate those other theories. He just says that he thinks it starts with man's search for meaning. And I think I can't recommend the book enough. So go get the book. A phenomenal book. I mean, really, I don't know what else to say about it. It was
I mean,
really
how
good.
can you not relate to that? Honestly, I think we all probably feel that struggle to search for meaning at some point. If we don't feel it right now, maybe we've already found it, but we felt it at some point.
Yeah.
I think that's something we can all relate with each other on.
Yeah, and if you have those questions at all, snag this book. It's a short read, quick listen, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, go knock that one out. All right, now I am nearing the end of Murph. So I just finished Murph number 50, and it's only two to go. And I'm super excited. But the reason I want to talk about Murph 50 or bring it up is because we're talking about confidence today in tonight or in the show. And we're just talking about belief and a lot of those things. And I really I did a lot of research for this episode, and one of the things that came up in a sports performance side of things was how music, and we've talked about music on the podcast before, but has like an actual psychological effect to your belief of how well you'll do in a workout, whether or not it's the placebo effect. And we're going to talk about all this, but like it has that actual effect. And so I recently found some music called the
certain type of music.
The artist is called A Tribe Called Red.
Okay.
I posted this on my Instagram account. So really crazy music. Not I mean, it's not that crazy at all, but like everyone will just have to go check it out. A Tribe Called Red. But like that, it gets me going for Murph.
You can't play us a little snippet right now.
Okay, I will play. No. I'm not gonna violate some copyright rules or whatever.
Oh, this is all educational.
Okay, to educate listeners further, I'll play a short snippet. Here we go. All right, so that sounds pretty crazy. It's good stuff, but I really think that everyone should go check it out and listen to A Tribe Called Red. I'm plugging their band because I wish I would have found their a long time ago, because it really made me go a lot faster. And 50, and I really want to end Murph number 52 with a vest on with a PR, and I don't know if that's going to be possible. You hear it, like that's my negative belief right there. Because I don't know if I can go as below sub 30 again with a vest on, but I'm going to try. And I really want 52 to end that way. And I got I got everything lined up for it. And so it's coming to an end, and I'm excited. All right, man, are you ready to talk about? So the title of tonight's show is Confidence is the Drug of Champions. And the reason we picked that title, and most of the time, to be honest, we don't have a title before we walk into a show. We kind of like have we just go, and then we name it afterwards, and kind of like waiting to see your baby before you give it a name. And we named this one up front because we had a lot of conversations leading up to this one, and it kind of comes out to the importance of confidence, but we have to start somewhere else. And that, I think, is what is holding you back. Why don't people in general try hard enough? Even by their own standards, most of the time, they might not achieve what they want. So if you're not achieving what you want, the answer is you're not trying hard enough, in my opinion. So I'm going to throw that question at you first. Why do you think people don't try hard enough? And then I'm going to I'll give some of my insight on why I think that people don't really achieve what they're after.
I think it's such a complex question for me. I know for you it's probably more straightforward, so it's going to make a lot more sense when you respond. But for me, it's one of those things where I think most people jump to say, if you're not achieving what you want to achieve, it's because you're not trying hard enough. And I think it makes a lot of sense in a lot of cases. But in some cases, it's not because people aren't trying. It's because of the lack of other things surrounding them. So it's either the lack of direction or dedication or maybe, positive support around them. And so for me, I think a lot of those things can kind of drive into it and then build. If you have those things, if you have those outside ulterior kind of things already working in your life, it can kind of build a confidence in you, which helps you already to kind of achieve what you want to achieve. So it kind of all works together. And I think if you're missing some things in your life, including, the dedication to or drive or will to do those, to get up and to work and to actually to do those things, then I think that can kind of be perceived as not trying hard enough.
Yeah, so and that's kind of a loaded. It's almost an accusation for me to say that, like you're not trying hard enough. So I understand that could be borderline offensive for most people just
right
to hear that. And it's not necessarily what I mean, because if you set a huge goal that could take 10 years to achieve, and just because you haven't achieved it in year 1, year 2, year 3, doesn't mean you're not trying hard enough. You might be trying as hard as you need to be trying to ultimately get there. So it doesn't mean if you're not what you want to be, that doesn't mean you're not trying hard enough. Maybe you are trying hard enough, you're just not there yet. But, when you do set a goal for yourself and you missed the mark, I guess is what I'm saying, is you didn't try hard enough. And I put that just as much on myself as I do anyone else. I think, but I think that standard needs to be there, as opposed to, the it's okay mentality. Like, no, it's okay. And it's really easy if you have everyone.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Everyone's like it's okay not to achieve it. Like
right. I see what you're saying. Accepting the failure.
Yeah, because family and friends can be the worst. In all honesty, because a lot of them would rather comfort you if you don't achieve something, and be like, it's not okay. Here's the reason. You still did a good job, because they want to boost your confidence and they want to, be nice, be there for you. But I think you occasionally need that person in your life who's like, look, you really didn't try hard enough there, or you're going in the wrong direction. And I wish everyone could have someone like that in their life, if you can handle it emotionally and mentally. I think that some people can't. But the main reason I think that people aren't trying hard enough are limiting beliefs. And I'm going to read what those are. It probably makes a lot of sense just hearing it, but I'm going to read it so we have a clear definition. So limiting beliefs are those which constrain us in some way. So just by believing them, we do not think, do, or say the things that they inhibit. And in doing so, we impoverish our lives. We may have beliefs about rights, duties, abilities, permissions, and so on. Limiting beliefs are often about ourselves and our self-identity. The beliefs may also be about other people and the world in general. And typically the areas that they show up on or our limiting beliefs are our experience, our education, our faulty logic, our excuses, and our fear. Mm-hmm. So that is why I think that's why everyone is held back to some degree not achieving what they want to achieve is there some sort of limiting belief in your life, and the hardest thing to do, in my opinion, is finding it and like identifying it first off, which you could probably help someone do really well. I think that's kind of like a good expertise you have, but
Right.
then actually correcting that in doing it. So like education, for example, I see this one all the time. I had it for a long time is like if you don't have a certain education in this, that, or the other, you shouldn't go down that path. Like, I mean, I have a business degree and I'm running a business, but do I need to go get an MBA in order to run my business better? You know, having beliefs like that, and which I 100%, I don't believe that at all, but I'm just saying like those are some of the limiting beliefs that you could have in your life, or I can't do this because I don't have this degree, when none of that's really true unless, we've talked about this before, the difference being self-taught, unless you want to be a doctor or a lawyer somewhere that there's like a piece of paper you have to have in order to practice. You know, I think that holds a lot of people back, as well as, you know, fear, some excuse you make, you know, some excuse you tell yourself on a daily basis that's not really true, but it's an excuse. But I don't know, man. I feel like I'm rambling on here. What do you think?
I feel like even with this show, I think if we had the idea that, you know, I don't have a PhD in this subject, you know, I haven't published a book on this topic, you know, this show's not going to be very good. I'm not going to be able to get my message across or be able to inform people about this thing that can make them better. And if we're going with that idea going into the show, then the show's going to be terrible. And we're not going to be able to get the message across, and people aren't going to understand, you know, what we're trying to tell them about how they can get better. And so it's just because we believe that it's not good enough in our minds. We believe that we're not good enough and that what we have to say isn't good enough. And I think the flip side of that is coming in, even to the show. I think I was saying this is going to be, you know, a great show. And I think it's just that's the mentality I try and take towards most things, because I feel like not necessarily even keeping in the front, you know, part of my brain, the conscious part, that just saying that's going to help the show. I don't even think about that at this point, because I've been trying to practice this so often, because what it does is I feel like it has so many effects other than just making the things, you know, better. Because I think whatever you say, do it in those kind of situations actually does come true, you know, to an extent, kind of.
Yeah, having that belief, like
Yeah.
the pre-belief. Yeah, you know, one of the big beliefs I had for a long time running into 3 Fitness was that, like, I see all these other people having like a lot of success in the strength and conditioning world or something, and I thought that there was just something about those people. I'd never put a finger on it, but I was just like, well, they have this or they have that or this expertise or they've done this and that.
Right.
And then once I started to, you know, get deeper and deeper into this world, and I actually met these people who I had kind of maybe put on a pedestal or had this conversation with this person, I'm like, it's kind of like the, you know, that Steve Jobs speech that he gave at like one of the
Graduation speech.
Yeah, he's like, you know, whatever, the world was built by people who are no smarter than you or I, and that's kind of the realization I had when I met these people who are supposedly like these titans, you know, in my world, and I'm like, oh, you're just kind of a normal dude, like, and yeah, you know what you're talking about, but I know what I'm talking about too, so like, you know, it just kind of took them off the pedestal. It didn't elevate me; it just kind of like leveled the playing field. I'm like, oh, we're all just like learning, growing, like figuring things out. No one really has anything mastered. It's all just, we're all in this, like, kind of in it together. We're all like learning. As long as you have that like forward thinking mindset to learn and grow, I think that levels the playing field in any capacity.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree. I think what you probably did when you were in those situations, you went in probably looking at like, okay, what sets these people apart? And honestly, I think when you found out that not very much sets them apart, I mean, it's really just, you know, your ability to believe in what you can achieve and then actually going out and doing it.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to like the second part of confidence is something I've been fascinated about, and I wasn't near as fascinated until we started this podcast 2 years ago, and it kept coming up, was the freaking placebo effect, or you know, believing in something and then it coming true. And so if someone's unfamiliar with the placebo effect, it's essentially you just believe. It could be fake, like very simple, like it could be a fake drug that you're given and you get better through the placebo effect,
something like that.
And there might be some you know, physiological process on why you got better, but it's ultimately the placebo effect of why you got better, even though you're taking a sugar pill in this drug trial, you still got better. And they just kind of write it off to the placebo effect. But I found that there's this entire pool and group of research and study and scientists who do nothing but focus on the placebo effect, which I think is,
really? Okay.
is really, really cool. And it's even in the sports and performance world. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on belief. And to be honest, they're synonymous. Belief and placebo effect, in my opinion, are synonymous. So you might hear me refer to it either way. But what's your opinion on this?
Oh, well, I've mentioned belief a couple times in the show already, because I feel like believing in yourself has so much to do with confidence. I feel like the placebo effect fits in perfect to this conversation because of it. And so for me, I don't like to use the term the placebo effect, because I feel like what I like to deduce it down to is really what it just is, and that's believing in something, believing in yourself, or the effects of a drug, or the effects of something else, believing in the outcome, that it will be positive. And so for me, I've always been very interested in this topic as well, even if I wouldn't have called it the placebo effect before. But I feel like it is very interesting, and it kind of just it kind of begs to the power of the mind that we've talked about on this show several times throughout the last couple of years, and how if you can get yourself to reframe things, to look at things differently. So if you can reframe how your health is going to be because you're taking this pill that's supposed to make you better, if you can reframe how you're going to perform on this test, because you believe that you're going to choose the right answers and score the higher grade, all these things can kind of filter into the overall outcome, because when you believe something happens and can happen, and believe in the potentiality of it, you start expecting that positive outcome to happen. So for me, I've always believed in the power of belief, and I feel like not just in the healing world, but also in finding success. And then I believe kind of in, if you kind of have that faith, that belief towards things working out, then also in kind of the realm of like luck and things like that as well.
Yeah, and that's we have covered this on the podcast, but it comes down to really the power of the mind. And there's a psychologist at Stanford named Aaliyah Crum, and she said, I don't think the power of the mind is limitless, but I don't think that we yet know where those limits are. But I do think we don't yet know where those limits are. And that's what I think about this. Because if you think about it, the placebo effect is the actual effect is largely chemical, right?
Right.
It's dopamine, opioids, serotonin, all these different things. This is what I pulled up in the research, that your brain unleashes these chemical processes to adjust what's happening in the body. And so that's kind of the physiological, that people they're gaining a little bit more understanding. There's not as much understanding is kind of what you're probably talking about, more on the side of the law of attraction, or believing in something for it to come true. Visualizing getting a good grade on a test for an hour straight before the test, and then you get a good grade on the test. That's like the second side of this that no one really understands. And to be honest, I don't think science can do much with it at this point. But I agree 100% with that psychologist from Stanford I don't think that we have any idea where the limits of the mind are even at yet, like in either realm. They have to be honest, in the grand scheme of understanding things from a scientific standpoint, they still have a gross misunderstanding of what the placebo effect actually is. They're just kind of labeling it as it has like some chemical effects, and we can kind of point it here and there, but they don't fully know.
And most of the things that I read in preparing kind of for this topic through the last couple of years, really, because we talked about it here and there, is that it's kind of like this mystical thing to scientists. It's almost like they don't really know how to describe it or really know how to quantify it, other than, success or positive results were gained. I mean, because there's not really a finger to put on anything, because there's nothing there. One thing I read was, I think from like the New York Times or something like that, and it was an article called "The Power of Nothing." And I think that's an interesting title of an article about the placebo effect, because in some cases it's nothing other than what you would think and perceive inside of your brain. And so I think that was at Harvard, I think you said, or Stanford, that doctor, I think she makes an really interesting point. But I do not like that she says in the end that at some point in there she says that she doesn't think the human brain is limitless, but she doesn't know what the limits are. I feel like we probably do have a limitless, capacity of our brains to achieve, to think what we want, to happen, and to make things happen for us, and to be able to have the belief into making things just come to fruition. And if that's at a small level of like being able to create something because we had the imagination to decide what it could be long before it happened, or if it's much greater, like finding the ability to heal ourselves just by thinking about it. But it reminds me of several things, like what was that method where the guy would be able to control his body temperature?
Wim Hof.
Wim Hof, right?
Yeah.
It reminds me of things like that a little bit too, because it's similar processes. He's flipping that switch in his brain to where he's going to control this. He's going to be aware of this concept, and he's going to be able to control it in his mind. And I think I've talked about that a lot on the show too before. I think belief can be the same way. If we can use imagine a type of pill that we're taking, or an injection that we're having, but instead of that being a flip that we switch in our head and just changing how we view things and how we view ourselves and how we believe in ourselves, I wonder if we could harness that placebo effect without taking anything.
Well, that's what's interesting, and that's the question I would love to have answered someday, is like the harnessing of the placebo effect. But I actually did some research on the Wim Hof method for this episode, and so the Wim Hof method is like scientifically, has a bunch of scientific studies now, and the things that it's has the ability to heal or influence are Parkinson's, asthma, chronic pain, digestive problems, but also pointed out, though, all of the diseases that Wim Hof has the ability to influence they're finding that are the most highly susceptible to the influence of placebo. And so things like Parkinson's, asthma, chronic pain, and digestive problems are all on the scale of placebo. Placebo can affect those things the most. And so that's does the Wim Hof method actually, is there any trick to his breathing or his cold, like there are some physiological processes they found in these studies and whatnot, but is it ultimately that, or is it ultimately the placebo effect that are causing these cures that people believe in?
Makes sense. So you're saying that his breathing and his entire quote unquote method could necessarily kind of be the pill in this situation, helping to let people believe that they can beat the cold or heal themselves because they have this quote unquote magic, sugar pill method.
Right. And, I on top of, being able to affect disease and whatever, one of the things I find most fascinating, because, you mentioned it and I kind of talked about the Wim Hof method. The method could be your pill, right? Like, but it can also boost athletic performance if you can just learn how to harness it this small amount. And a guy who's kind of the lead researcher on this, his name's Christopher Beatty, and I'd love to have him on the show. I'll probably reach out to him, but this is kind of like a lot of his life's work now is how elite athletes perform under intense fatigue, and how they can have like a performance enhancement through the mind. And there's just a ton of stuff. Like he's uncovered some let me pull up one of his things. It's what he's trying to do. He kind of breaks down his method is either remove energy wasting anxiety or tapping into chemicals like opioids and as yet undiscovered internal performance drugs through one's expectations. The brain can coax the body into that magic zone, the zone. So that's kind of his research boiled down into like one sentence. He's trying to figure that out. And it's funny because he does a lot of training with athletes, and he lies to his athletes all the time. And one of the articles I read, and it's based off of this study that was done in 2008 from an Italian placebo scientist. His name is Fabrizio Benedetti. Anyway, he told weightlifters that they were getting performance-enhancing drugs when they were actually getting placebos and secretly lighter weights to lift. So they're getting these lighter weights. They think that they're getting stronger, right? So once they believed the drugs were working as perceived by the lighter weights, so they're like lifting these lighter weights, but the plates maybe look the same. They're like, oh man, I'm getting stronger. So he influenced one further. He then took the loads and returned them to their normal weight. And the force the athletes were able to produce with their muscles increased while the perceived fatigue stayed the same.
Wow.
So essentially, just to put that in context of me lifting, if I was like, okay, cool, I'm taking these drugs that are making me stronger. You give me 600 pounds on the bar. Talon loads the bar for me. I'm like, oh yeah, but really it's like 500 pounds, right? It's 500 pounds,
Right.
and then you come back, whatever, a couple weeks later, and you're like, well, let's try 600 again, and it's actually 600 this time, and I actually lifted it, and I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, well, we tricked you. Well, anyway, that's what that was one of the studies that I pulled, but also that's what I thought it was funny that in the article I read about Mr. Beatty here, or I think he's a doctor. He, like I said, his athletes basically don't trust him because he's so in the weight room. And I've done this to
He's
people.
so deceptive.
I've done this
Yeah.
to people in training, but not in like epic ways. They'll be like, what's that on the bar? Like 420? I'm like, yeah, it's 420. And it's like 425, 430, something like that. And they
Right.
lift it anyway because they, in their mind, they're like, I got 420. Like I can for sure squat that. I'm good to go. And then they're like, oh, dude, you just got like a 15-pound PR. It's like, what? And I've seen little things like that happen over and over. But man, it really, what you believe can really come true.
That was kind of the point I really wanted to make in talking about just how belief can branch off into success. Is really just that prolonged belief over time. It kind of siphons into expectation to achieve. Like one creates the other one. Like that prolonged belief that you had, created that expectation for you to achieve. Just like, if you were lifting that 600 pounds, even though that was 500 pounds, you've done it already. So you've done it a few times already, that you expect that next time that you're going to do it, that you're going to be able to achieve that. So that success kind of breeds that confidence that you have in the moment while you're pulling up that bar, because you believe it. But I think it also like filters out to other things. I think was it really interesting to me as I was listening to this study that was explained to me that was about how there's degrees of belief, how like you can have greater results depending on how strongly you believe. I mean, the example that they used was they used white pills versus blue pills with like a little label stamp on them versus like a capsule, with like one color different than the other, and then versus an injection. And the people that had the injection had the greatest results versus the people that had just the white pill. And I think that's such an interesting concept.
Were they all placebo though?
They were all placebo.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's all placebo, but white pill, blue pill, or injection.
Right. And the results varied in that order. Like people who had the scarier, the more intense seeming type of drug, or whatever, had the much greater results. I think that was wild to me. So do you think that kind of has a, I don't know, correlation to like the everyday world if we're in terms of belief?
Yeah, I think so, because like the easiest way I could break that down is if bringing it back down to a physical example.
Yeah.
To be honest, physical fitness most of the time in training people is relatively simple, especially if I'm working on someone one-on-one. Sometimes it can be so deceptively simple that they might not think that they're getting a good workout. And so, like I say, you want to train with me, you want to get stronger, we come in and say, I only work with you for 20 to 30 minutes. And, you're like, okay, that's going to make me stronger. I'm like, yeah, man, get out of here. See you tomorrow. You'd be like, okay, you might lose a little belief in it. But if I bring you in, we do some really hard, working out, I'm having you do like crazy shit, like throwing sandbags over your back and like climbing ropes. And I'm not saying this stuff is bad stuff, but like we're done like an hour and a half later, and you leave and you're just like dead, and you're like, no, this is going to be a good program. This is hell yeah. And when really, if we're just trying to increase your back squat, I could have done that in 20 minutes, and you probably wouldn't even have to really break a sweat,
Right.
And so yeah, I think it's very much a placebo effect in that way, but people just have these expectations that if I'm going to achieve something that's really hard, I have to do something. It has to be really hard for me to be able to achieve it, when that's not always the case. Now, I will say, caveat, getting stronger actually does take a lot of hard work. You can't like not break a sweat and like not try very hard and actually get stronger. But just my point being, things can be simple and still be effective. And people sometimes think that to be effective, it has to be complex, because what they want to achieve is super difficult.
Right.
All right. And so the last thing I want to say, and this is from his study there, is he said that one of his main goals is that he's trying to educate athletes into the idea that there's this headroom, like this, basically like this, you have more ability to rise to the next level, like, and it has to be filled with something. And he said too many people are filling it with drugs. Like, they think because to be honest, when you get to the top of any game, like physically, there aren't a lot of options left for you.
Right.
And that's why most of the like elite athletes, we talked about this in the steroids episode, but like that's why a lot of elite athletes turn to steroids, not because they're a shitty person or, really have bad ethics. I mean, maybe some of that's true to some degree, but like really they're doing it because they're at the top of their game. They're at that 0.01% of improvement, and they think that that's what's going to get them there. And he's trying to replace that idea with, it's not the drugs that are necessary. Like, you can do this through confidence. You can do this through being more confident, having a better belief system in place, and that can be the real difference that fills that gap in your mind. It doesn't have to be drugs or something else. It's just confidence. And he's talking about this for absolute elite athletes. So bringing that down to just, the other guy, me, you, everyone listening to this podcast who just wants to get better, bring a little more confidence into our life, and that's going to help us skyrocket our results almost any direction.
I totally agree. I think that's basically what confidence, I think, does for us. I think the stronger you believe, I think it must have a bigger effect. And the last thing on that topic that I kind of want to touch on, I know it's something that's probably even harder to put a finger on, and they're already talking about something that's really, is even called the power of nothing, like I said before, is that kind of the good fortune, that kind of luck factor. And I feel like this might just be an everyday happy-go-luckiness, maybe. That's something that I experienced that I'm really trying to explain. But I think things like, in ancient times, people would do like a rain dance, and really believe that the good fortune was coming, or they'd have like a tribal dance for a good season, or, a fruitful, spring or whatever. Or like, I think recently we just had Groundhog's Day. I think that's a good example too. It's a groundhog. Does he see his shadow? I mean, when he sees it, do we believe that there's going to be a good, soon coming spring coming on? Do we believe that's not? I mean, other people out there actually still believe that. Who knows? But I think even things that we talk about on this show, like more tactical things like the gratitude journal, I think in the long run that kind of builds into that placebo effect as well, because you're retraining your brain in that long term to look at things with that more positive light, and that belief, and that those things are going to be the things that continue to occur, and the things that you focus on, and the things that happen in your life. So I think all those things kind of playing into each other over time show us that if we kind of just believe in the positivity and have faith that things will turn out and things will work out for us, and that we will continue to improve, that somehow has an effect as well.
I agree with that. I think it's more than having a positive mindset, but it's an actual belief in the. But I mean, it kind of is like the positive mindset. But I also love the quote by Thomas Jefferson: "The harder I work, the more luck I seem to have." Yeah. Which I think is, just going back to your luck idea in general, is like, I mean, if you're just putting in the work over and over, like we talked about the overnight success thing, like it could take 15, 20 years for someone to be an overnight success, right? But they were just putting in the work, and then all of a sudden they're quote unquote lucky, right? And
right.
I think that it just staying the course from a work perspective, putting down and putting in the work, but also having the belief that it's going to happen, or you're going to achieve what you want. I think the two of them combined is like an unstoppable force.
I think you say it all right there.
And I mean, do you want to end on the real big picture here? Like, because we talked about, I mean, we started this off by just talking about, why people maybe don't try hard enough. They don't want to achieve. Maybe it's a limiting belief or some other reason. And then, we talked about really having to believe, and how that's more powerful than most people think. And I think that one blows my mind so much is probably because I had the most limiting belief in belief, is that I didn't think, coming from such a physical background of sports athletics and weightlifting and everything, that I just feel like, no, what you think in your head doesn't really matter. It's only the work that you put in. And over the course of the last 2 years, that's completely been turned upside down. I think it's, like I just said, is like they're almost equally important, is the fact that you have to have like a genuine belief in what you're going to achieve. The only place I feel like this doesn't fit is when you're talking about other people, but that's almost another topic all by itself. I don't think that you can believe your way to someone doing something for you or something like that. I feel like it's a lot more what you control inside your body, albeit subconsciously. But that might be another topic because I don't know your stance on that. You might disagree with me.
I'm just so happy, smiling from ear to ear over here, listening to you say that, your entire frame of reference on how the power of the mind has really changed in the last 2 years. Because to me, I feel like, everything we talked about, every argument we had in college now just, makes me so happy.
Well, I've obviously, like, I created the Mental Toughness Militia in 2012. Like, I've always had it's
Right.
100% about
True.
the mind, the power of the mind. But I agree with that, like, tips and strategies. But now that the placebo effect, I think, is more specifically what I'm talking about, the last 2 years of
Right.
this unharnessed approach that no one really knows about, is what's so fascinating to me. That power of the mind specifically of like, shit, you can actually like change your biochemistry through thinking. Like, that's insane to me. But I was kind of recapping the show to bring us to
Sure. Yeah.
the big picture, which also starts with the book we have, is that meaning, having that big purpose, that big drive. And we've had an entire show about finding your purpose. And if that book sounded interesting, or finding your purpose is something you're after, definitely go listen to that. But how do you feel like having some sort of meaning to what you're doing in life? How do you think that ties into your belief and ultimately achieving or trying harder and achieving?
I think it ties in immensely. I think a good example is kind of the challenge I threw out there today. And I think if you're throwing up, was one of your pictures on that collage, something that fits into your destiny or your purpose, your meaning for living, then you're gonna kind of continue to see that, and you're gonna train your brain to think, okay, this is where I need to be. This is the direction that I'm going. This is where I'm headed, regardless of even if you're working necessarily that hard. I mean, I think it's important that the harder you work, the closer you'll get, and the sooner you'll get there. But I do think that regardless of necessarily how hard you're working to get there, just the belief that, okay, I'm on the path to achieving that. I'm on the path to my destiny, to living the life that I need to be or want to be living. And that sets you up so much more to achieving it, because you honestly believe that you'll get there someday. Then the steps that you take will be towards that, achieving that goal for that one purpose, because you will be kind of immersed in that confidence that you believe that it'll happen.
And it's kind of answering the why, right? Like, and I talked about this a little bit in last week's episode when my book recommendation was Start With Why.
Mm-hmm.
But the topic, what I brought up then and what I'll bring up again now is, like, in my business, yes, it is a business, so it has to make money. But it absolutely, for me personally, my goal of the entire business cannot be some monetary goal. Like, right. I think those are metrics to track how you're doing. Like, that's just like a one of the dials to see, like, if you're succeeding or whatever. But my ultimate purpose in the business is to help build better human beings. Like, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because if I were to die tomorrow, I wouldn't, on my deathbed, wouldn't be happy with the fact that my business made a certain amount of money. That wouldn't fulfill me whatsoever. If I could look back and say, look, this many people said that they were better through your conversations with talent, through articles you wrote, into 3 Fitness, through a program you put out, and they said that they're a better human being because of it. That is something I'm okay with. That's something I'm happy about. And so I think everyone, kind of has to have that shift. And those other things that everyone thinks that are important, like money or clothes, cars, I don't know. Those are just kind of like, those are metrics to dial things in to see how you're doing. But they, in my opinion, they can't be the big why. It can't be the big why.
No. And I think you hit the nail on the head right there, is because you personally believe that goal, that reason for living or reason for having, a business at all is worthwhile, is right. what makes it important. You believe that's it's worthwhile. And so that makes everything you do in kind of the name of making that happen for others, that much more important because you believe that's important. So you put maximum effort towards doing that. I think that's kind of fits all within the placebo effect as well.
Yeah, it only matters like what you think ultimately, right? Because someone else might look at my goal and be like, you're stupid. I don't think that's cool. I would never want to do that. And I'm like, that's fine. This is my goal. Right. This is what I want to do. Yeah, it only matters what you believe and what you go after. But I think we covered it. Did you have anything else?
No, I think that's everything.
All right, so if you guys have been enjoying the show, please leave us a 5-star review and a positive comment on iTunes. Get you some more book recommendations and whatnot. And if you're liking everything, do check out the show notes. I'm trying to beef them up. All the show notes are at end3fitness.com. Go to the blog section. I'm trying to put in any links that we talked about as far as research goes. I want to put those in there. I want to make sure that the book is linked to on Amazon so you can go check it out. The quote, I'm starting to add the quote now in there. So I'm doing this a lot. And I call him my chief barbell officer, Joe. He's helping me beef these things up, making the business better in a lot of other ways. And so go check that out if you want to dive deeper into the research and read more, because one of the studies I mentioned alone is like 47 pages, and I quickly skimmed over it. I read the entire document, but
2x speed.
No, I had to read it as a PDF. Unfortunately, sometimes I have to go old school. But I bring that up just because, like, if you want to go deeper on, like, I really scratch the surface with some of the things I talk about, but I link to all of it now in the show notes, so you can go like, oh, I want to know about Chris Beatty, where he's doing, where his research is at, or I want to know more about this book or whatever. Make sure you check out the show notes. But that's all I got for this week.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Peace.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.